Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. It is exactly 8:46 a.m. We're going to be joined by Tembisa Fakude. He is a senior researcher at AfriCID, and we're going to be looking at the outrageous issue. He may not agree with me. Let's see what his thoughts are. MBS, a Saudi leader, has received immunity in the Jamal Khashoggi homicide case. Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Tembisa? Thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning.
Shukran, thanks for having me.
Your thoughts on this issue? Was this expected at all? And knowing that, Saudi and the US have been having many bilateral talks. They do lots of, there's lots of trade going on between them. And very especially in light of the issue around oil and gas shortages all around the world because of the war in Ukraine, that it suits Biden to make this overture to MBS so that he can secure his oil and gas supplies.
Yeah, that's the whole point. It's actually a joke and an insult at the same time, because the same Joe Biden who went on during his campaign that he was going to render Mohammed bin Salman a persona non grata, and now what we see him normalizing him, and it's because of purely business. One is correct to say that Saudi Arabia threatened, if you remember, just before the midterm elections, they influenced OPEC to reduce the oil production, which they hoped that it will have an impact on the electability of Joe Biden, and for the U.S. to give him immunity after what has happened, and the world has been observing, still waiting for some sort of justice. It was first the text to transfer that file back to Mohammed bin Salman. Now we see a U-turn by the Biden administration in terms of how they deal with Mohammed Salman. So money talks, but at the same time, these people, they really do believe that they are the only ones entitled to, going around the world and creating the havoc that they've created. And all of us are just observers because they are somehow ordained by Allah to be who they are, and they've given the rights that they have, that they can go kill people, chop their bodies into pieces and dissolve them. So this is it's really upsetting, but at the same time, Saudi Arabia is an independent country. There's nothing much you can do except not going for Hajj, and you hardly
Yeah.
find in South Africa who speak against them, because many people still want to go for Hajj. So
Mhm.
whatever it takes, they will smile and they will accept all of these atrocities and injustices simply because he happens to control one of the most important places in Islam.
Absolutely. What was very sad when I read that tweet by Jamal Khashoggi's ex-fiance, and I quote, she says, "Jamal died again today." And that for me was so very heartbreaking. It seems as if she is the only one, apart from other human rights advocates, that is mourning this loss and mourning yet again the fact that MBS is getting away literally and figuratively with murder. And the rest of the world, all world leaders, are silent on this issue because it's just another brown man who was done away with. And that
Yeah,
is what I
that's true.
find so outrageous.
Yeah, that's very true, and it's sad. I mean, it started with Turkey. I mean, Turkey transferred that file, notwithstanding that it's like taking it, who killed Jamal Khashoggi, and you take that file and you give it to the same person to try and achieve justice for Jamal Khashoggi. But at the same time, Jamal's family in Saudi Arabia, particularly his sons, have also been quietened by Mohammed bin Salman, using all whatever power he has. So the world is not fair and continues to be unjust because of these individuals who really think that they are special creation of Allah on earth and they can do as they please. Muhammad Salman is a case in point. But I mean, you saw what happened even last week at COP27. Egypt,
Mm,
greatest jail of human rights activists around the world, and they've killed Mohammed Morsi.
mhm.
They were allowed to host one of the most important function in the world, and no one said a
Absolutely.
word.
Mm,
So
mm,
we have these kind of situations. Mohammed bin Salman is is slowly being normalized once again, notwithstanding that you know what he did. So the best we can do is to talk about it and try and protest whenever possible. But again, because of the power that these people hold, and because of Mohammed bin Salman's position in Saudi Arabia, you'll hardly find anyone talking about this. Jamal Khashoggi was a Muslim, and his issue became a Muslim issue. And because Muslims still want to go for Hajj, as I said, they will never say anything against Mohammed bin Salman. In fact, you're going to hear you hear nothing henceforth about him because most of them don't want to jeopardize those opportunities of being, one, sponsored for Hajj, and two, just visiting Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely. It's all about money, is it not? You refer to late Jamal Khashoggi's sons in Saudi Arabia. I think in a previous discussion that you and I had shortly after Jamal Khashoggi's death, I did raise the question with you about his family back in Saudi, and at that time you indicated, which is customary in the Middle East countries, that they call it blood money, but I would call it blood and hush money. They paid the family blood money, and I think the family were quite happy with the matter just being settled there and then. Your thoughts on that issue?
Yes, that's true. And you must remember that Jamal has got adult children, and his entire family, his brothers and family, are all in Saudi Arabia, and they will have no choice on the matter but to follow what this Mohammed bin Salman had instructed them. He's a very brutal leader. It's not only Jamal Khashoggi that was killed. There are a lot of other people that we don't even know about who disappeared. They continue suppressing basic human rights. They've killed, the clergy there. Sheikh Nimar al-Nimr was also killed because of speaking against Saudi Arabia. At the moment, they are trying to build that city called Neom, and they are forcibly removing people without compensation, and those that complain are jailed for life. So it's a very brutal country under very brutal leadership, and one will understand, of course, that the family of Jamal Khashoggi not only were they enticed by money, but also are fearful of what Mohammed bin Salman can do to them. So it's a dictatorship of a very different kind, and unfortunately, as I said, he controls two most important spaces in Islam, which is Makkah and Medina, and as a result, we find that very few Muslims are going to speak against him, and this is the brute that we're dealing with at the moment. And at least some of us who are not even looking at going back to Saudi Arabia can talk about it.
Absolutely. I know quite a number of people who share your thoughts, and the suggestion is just keep away from Hajj and Umrah, but then our numbers here in South Africa are so small. So Tembisa, I kind of wonder, would it even make a difference? But then you might just respond by saying every little bit, every act of support or defiance eventually builds up and can make a difference. Your thoughts?
Well, South Africa is small, but if you remember, in all other processes in the world, whether it was an invasion of Iraq, the Palestinian cause, we remain one of the biggest solidarity country on Palestine, for example, notwithstanding our size. So I'm not quite sure whether that will be the reason. We can do the same in terms of putting pressure. We are one of the very few people in the world who's still free, who can have debates such as this on a public platform. Other countries can't. And absolutely. I think we shouldn't waste that opportunity. We should continue talking about it because what's happened to Jamal Khashoggi is totally injustice.
Absolutely, and that's not the last we're going to hear about these atrocities. It's going to carry on till these brutal dictators continue to remain in power. Tembisa, that's where we leave it. Shukran so very much for your insights and your time this morning on the show. Till the next time, as always, keep safe. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Walaikum assalam.
That was senior researcher at AfriCID, Tembisa Fukude, talking to us about MBS. The Saudi leader has received immunity in the Khashoggi murder case by Joe Biden from the United States.